All right, good evening. How are you? So I have a little bit of an intro I'm going to read. It's the same intro I've read to everyone, just some housekeeping items.
Sure.
And then we'll get right into things. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 12th special select board meeting. The purpose of our meeting tonight, last Tuesday and next Tuesday, is to interview the 4 finalists recommended by the selection committee for the town manager position in Foxborough. We're interviewing the candidates in alphabetical order. We already interviewed 2 candidates on Tuesday, and then there was actually an unexpected schedule change for the candidate that was going to be next this evening. We'll now be interviewing that person Tuesday, directly before the select board meeting. We'll take a break, and then we'll go into our regular business meeting on January 17th. All right, so thank you to Bernie and the screening committee for helping us get from a pool of 30 applicants down to the 4 finalists. While cable access is here this evening recording the meeting, programming will not be released until after all the interviews are complete. So I'd like to thank you for your time this evening and interest in rejoining us in Foxborough. We'd like to think we're a special community and are passionate about making sure we find the right replacement for Bill Keegan, who will be retiring in a few months. So we're excited and eager to hear more from you. We've scheduled approximately 1 hour for each interview. The board will go around asking you scenario-based questions. And Bernie is going to help keep us on track time-wise.
Sounds good.
So don't be offended if he chimes in. We've asked him to do that. Specific examples and scenarios from your past are encouraged in your answers. Public participation and questions from the audience is not permitted during the interview process. Everyone has reviewed your resume in advance of tonight's meeting. So due to time constraints, I'll ask each member of the board to give like a 30-second interview, name, background, time on board, whatever they think is right. We'll give it to Bernie to see if he has a thing or two to say, see if we have any questions from you, and then get started. All right, so we'll go right down the line.
Sounds great.
Mark Elfman, been on the board for 7 years. I'm in my 3rd term. Been a Foxborough resident for 33 years. I own a small business in town and love being a part of the community.
Thank you, Dan.
Dennis Keefe, this is my first year on the select board. I also lived in Foxborough 6 or 7 years, so I bring some of a new perspective, to the process, given, the time I spent in Foxborough and the time I've been on the select board. I spent my whole career in healthcare, mostly leadership positions.
That's good. Thank you.
All right, Leah Gibson, I grew up here in town. I'm in my 2nd term on the board. This is my 5th year. I've worked for an HR consulting firm for the last 20 years, focused on like benefits and retirement consulting. Right now, most recently, global benefits.
Okay, Stephanie McGowan. I'm just finishing my 1st term, been 3 years on the board. I think served 3 years on advisory committee. I think that's when our paths crossed.
Yes.
First time around. I been in Foxborough now for almost 25 years. My husband grew up here, and that's what brought me here, and that's about it, I guess.
Thank you very much.
Seth Ferguson, we know each other from when you were here last. I've been on the select board for almost 2 years, and before I was on the advisory committee. So financial background and experience, sort of my focus.
Excellent.
All right, great. Bernie?
Yeah, just I will be, as the chair has pointed out, I'll be sort of watching the clock and trying to keep everyone on track with that. And if I have any follow-up questions, I'll jump in as needed.
Appreciate that. That's great.
Any questions from you, Nick, before we get started?
None. Thank
No?
you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to kind of go round robin with some questions that we've developed in
Sure.
previously. All right, so thank you for your interest in Foxborough. Please take a couple minutes to tell us why you're interested in the position and why you believe you'll be successful here.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Nick Riccio, as you all know. You have my resume. Municipal manager and
The audience is just asking you to speak up a little. Maybe move the microphone in.
sorry. Okay, so much better.
Yes, better.
Yeah.
So my name is Nick Riccio. I'm 25-year municipal experience, both in mostly building inspecting as a commissioner and inspector of buildings. I did serve as an interim town manager on more than one occasion and acting town manager. I do have town management experience. Over 25 years of municipal experience, my last 2 was here. I did just over 2 years. Left here just shy of 3 years ago for personal business reasons. When I left here, it was no intent to retire. I like Foxborough very much. I value this community, the people. I enjoy working with the staff here. Just a really great place to work. So it was bittersweet to leave. When I left municipal government, I had no intentions of really retiring permanently. I knew I'd come back into municipal government. I didn't know where or when. I haven't been looking for employment at all. I've been working in private. I also bring 25 years of private sector experience to this table as well. I'm an attorney, as you know, and I'm also a private developer and builder. So I have that perspective too, and I bring private world experience with me. So my intent was always to come back into municipal service at some point, finish my career. I'm at an age now, I'm looking to finish my career and not move again. I'm hoping Foxborough is it. This is the only job I've applied for, is the town of Foxborough. Like I say, I haven't been actively looking for anything. Just the timing of Bill Keegan's retirement, and that's why I put my name here. I think I can be effective. I grew up in the neighboring town of Mansfield, as you probably know. I have long relationships in Foxborough. I go back to high school days with a lot of Foxborough people. I have a lot of Foxborough acquaintances and friends here. I like the town very much. I think it's very well run. I think you're very stable. And again, having worked with most of your staff, I know, but for the new hires, I've worked with most of your department heads, senior department heads, and really value relationships I made with them. I think you got a really talented group of people here. If I didn't think I could do well by you and do a good job for you, I wouldn't be in this position. But that's why I'm here tonight. I thank you for having me tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity. Also, to thank the screening committee. I had a really good experience there. It was a really good interview. Thank them for passing me along to the finals and getting me here. So thank you very much, and happy to take your questions, please.
All right, wonderful.
Guess I'm up first. How do you go about setting long-term goals for yourself in the organization, and how do you use data in the management of your organization?
So long-term goals have to be aligned with the town, the community's goals, obviously. Strategic planning and looking at data and empirical evidence is extremely important. Looking at historical data, the trends. Going forward, I would set my goals in line with this committee, obviously the board, obviously. I feel like I work for the select board, and you would set values and goals and objectives for me, and I will align myself along your wishes, quite frankly.
You mentioned that you filled in as town manager in Mansfield, I think.
I did.
For a little bit.
I did, Dr. Elfman.
Obviously, you have some experience. In that role, did you implement a strategic plan for Mansfield at the time?
We didn't actually do a strategic plan on Mansfield, but we, when I was here in Foxborough, actually, I went to a leadership training with actually Paige Duncan, who's in the audience, Bill Keegan, Mike Johns at the time, and we did a pretty intensive and comprehensive training on strategic planning. So, I know that in terms of the process, I know how it works. We in Cambridge 4 weekends, 4 months in a row for a whole weekend. We brought it back here. Actually, I think, Leah, you worked with us facilitating one of those sessions. So I'm pretty well versed in the process itself in terms of how it works. I mean, start right with the mission statement, which is what's our purpose? Why are we here? Right. Next would be a vision statement, and we'd work on that together to get the vision and see. We look at where we're at now, where we want to be in the future, right? Where we're going. That's pretty much it. We'd do typical SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then the big thing is assembling the right team, right? You want to make sure we have the right stakeholders in the room, a cross-section, diverse cross-section of community, being elected officials, appointed officials. Important to have staff on board, obviously, with you, and then community members. We want community members involved in the process as well when you're developing this plan. It's all about goals and objectives, and also I'd use the SMART framework. You need to be specific with your goals. I think you need to prioritize those goals. You need to, realistic expectations, realistic goals you can meet, attainable goals. I missed one of the acronyms. And then obviously they have to be, time-based. They have to be time-certain. You want to spend a window, and it needs to be measurable, obviously. You need to make sure you get some kind of key metrics you can look at to make sure we're getting to where we're supposed to be getting, some milestones we hit or we're not hitting. Depending on the length of the plan, some of these plans are a year, some could be 3 years, some could be 10 years. The longer the plan is, the more likely it is to come back to the plan and redirect and reprioritize as priorities change and needs change, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, and locally, in a smaller project, obviously we could develop a strategic plan among staff. Most important is the community buy-in and also your staff buy-in. I mean, they're the ones you're tasking with this hard work, right? I think you have to go from top down, bottom up. They need to be included in this process, be extremely transparent about it, and really articulate why we're doing this. What are the goals? What are the objectives? It's good for the community. It's good for all of us. And we're all, rowing in the same direction in this matter, and we're going to work together on it and bring them into the process. Let them be heard. It's important that, they participate in the process. And, last, that's for smaller stuff. For larger strategic plans, I know you have a plan, your master plan is getting dated. I know it's been a good plan. It's coming up on a decade. I know it's going to be in the future, looking at something like that. Something that comprehensive or complex, obviously, look at an outside consultant. You'd bring somebody in to facilitate and help the community outreach. Mansfield just recently updated their master plan. That was a great process. I think they did a fantastic job of getting the word out. Everything from, direct mails to just, notices and, social media. They did a really nice job. It was a good process, and I'm told it was really well attended and good participation. So strategic plan, I think that's what it's about. It's about involving the stakeholders that matter and can help you make these decisions. Kind of, you're looking for more.
Oh, that's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Sure.
So, strategic planning, mission, vision, values, SWOT analysis.
Yes.
Did you use any of those tools while you participated in Foxborough's strategic planning process?
Yes, we did, Dennis. We brought it back here to town, and it was a 2-year process. So we took a lot from it. We actually had sessions right here in this room right here, round tables and facilitations. We went to the middle school. I give Paige, who's in the audience, I know a lot of the credit. Paige really ran with this. Bill and Mike did a lot of work with it. It was very valuable. We got a lot out of it. It was really good training. I missed one point is the other big piece of this obviously is tying this into your budget plan, right? If you get a strategic plan and you don't fund it, obviously you're not going to be able to, if you're setting priorities, you need to align your budget strategy with those priorities, correct? So we did a lot of that analysis as well. So it was a great experience, great process, and I enjoyed it. So I'd have to go back and review my leadership notes, but it was a good plan. It was a few years ago. Yeah, it was good. Thank you. Yeah.
Well said.
Speaking of leadership, Nick, tell us about your leadership style and give examples of your approach to working with a team and leading change in an organization and a community to motivate change and, improve performance.
Sure, Dennis. So there's some leadership up. I mean, we all use all the time, but I'm definitely collaborative. I'm a collaborative leader. I'm participatory. I'm a hands-on manager. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy working with the staff. I enjoy working with the public. So, for lack of a better term, I'm in the trenches. I want to work with you and work together collaboratively and build consensus. I think I communicate well with staff. Again, I can't say enough good about your staff here. I think you got some super talented people. Everybody I've worked with here, and a lot of them came on during my tenure here. Just the 2 years I was here, you hired Chief Grace, Chief Kelleher came on board, Chris Gallagher, everybody, Mark Craig. So it was a real dynamic group, and you're in a really good position. And that's one of the attractions of this job is to work with people of that caliber. So I think in terms of leadership here, it's really more, fostering good relationships, knowing that the team know you have their back, you appreciate the work they do, and work with them to develop and do the right thing for the town. That's what it's all about. The second piece to that, Dennis, I'm sorry, it was leadership style, and it was the second part of that question. Yes.
Second part was
Examples.
give examples.
Okay,
of
so
your
when I did serve as interim town manager back in Mansfield, it was several years back. I took over right around town meeting. The town manager left really quickly. It was an abrupt exit, unfortunately, and it was contentious. And I walked into a situation. I won't go with all the details, but it was the end of the budget cycle, and we were in pretty tough shape financially. We had a lot of unforeseen expenditures, and we were a little upside down. And right away. Also, at the same time, we were migrating into a new software. We actually left Munis for another vendor, which ended up not being the right thing to do. So we were struggling, and I assembled a team of finance committee, select board members, key staff, obviously, and we redirected it. We put some spending controls in place. I'm not a big fan of spending controls with staff unless it's really necessary. I think you trust your people to spend wisely. But I think that was a good example of leadership and turning things around. We've been getting a balanced budget and closed the fiscal year out, and it worked out well and went into the next year successfully.
Okay, good.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Speaking of budget, Seth's up. Rolling right into the next question
There we go.
perfectly.
So the top's financial management.
Sure.
And so the board's interested in your experience with municipal finance and budget preparation. You talked a little bit about tying strategy into the budget. And you mentioned spending controls. So if you could just elaborate a little bit on how you would describe your financial management philosophy.
Sure. So obviously, being in municipal government for 25 years, I'm familiar with 25 budget cycles.
Yep.
I've been, CIP, obviously, all sides of that. As town manager, I developed the budget. I'm philosophically, you have, again, back to your staff, you have a very good finance team here. I had the opportunity to review your financial summit, which I thought was so impressive and transparent, and I got a lot out of that. So George and Marie do a wonderful job. I think from a manager's perspective, you work with this finance team, with this super management team, and you develop your needs and wants, and obviously within the parameters of the policy boards. We're listening to you, we're listening to the AdCom. And this past year was a 2.5% was your budget parameter. So do what you have to do to work within those parameters. You go back to your staff. Again, I think you have a great process here. I understand it's actually been enhanced since I left, but even when I was here, you had a really good solid budget process. It started early, great communication from the top down. Bill Keegan did a great job with his budget message, setting the parameters. We, everything from meeting with, every department heads one-on-one with the management, and then the AdCom, the representative of the AdCom, that was a great model. And it got you where you needed to be. So I don't see myself making any major shifts in policy unless that's something that came from you. I think you do a good job. I don't think you fix what's not broken. You guys are, obviously you're in great financial shape for a reason because you do it well. And I think I'd follow suit. I'd want to hear what George has to say. I know George is thinking about retirement, unfortunately, and I know you'll pick a capable successor. But I think it's a super important piece to work with the finance team in general. Not just, you're looking at the current year, obviously, all the time, in future years, past years for historical data, but for the current year, it's super important just to monitor what's going on. You want to make real sure your revenue piece is where it should be, how you forecasted it, right? Everything's based on a forecast of local revenue and your levy, and levy's pretty consistent, but state aid. So, you're constantly looking at that revenue piece all throughout the budget. Budgeting is a year-long cycle. It's not the 3 months before town meeting, let's face it. We do budget every day we're here. I think depending on the level of involvement with George, if they meet, they met weekly at an ops meeting. I was always in the ops meeting. I appreciated that very much. That was very organic. It really built the team atmosphere, and I appreciated that. So we heard about finances every week. And if you're running short on something, then you take corrective action. You do so if needed. Obviously, it'd keep you informed. You should be seeing what I'm seeing, right? If something's amiss, if a spending's out of control, a spending line item, or a catastrophic incident happened where you had to spend a bunch of money, then you come back and look at it and you make a mid-course change in the middle of the budget cycle. It's been done. I had to do it myself. But generally speaking, I think you work with the budget team, you work with the policy boards, the AdCom, you set the parameters, and you just go forward and follow that timeline. It's important to adhere to the timeline. Obviously, you don't want to wait. I think some of you talk about having a preliminary budget out by by 2/1, right? February 1st. Is that what I heard at the summit, budget summit? It was. You had pretty aggressive timeline.
Yeah.
You're well poised to be. It's all about is being ready for town meeting, right? You want a smooth town meeting. You want to be super transparent. Get as much out there as you can to the public. You want the public to see everything you're seeing. If they have questions, encourage them. Come in and see us now. To the extent you can answer people's questions and address their concerns before town meeting, to the fullest extent we do that. We want a nice, smooth town meeting, and they're not always smooth. Believe me, I've been in Foxborough does a great job with town meeting. I don't mean Foxborough, but I've been in a lot of past town meetings. I've been a town meeting member in Mansfield long before I was in municipal government. I've always enjoyed doing that. We've had some real contentious meetings over the years, and even in law school, I went to a lot of meetings, just in different workshops, different towns, and really good flavors, different experiences. And it's amazing that the difference in demeanor and sometimes lack of civility. And this is always a civil process, and I always promote civility, obviously, especially in municipal government. So.
Thanks, Nick. If I could, I just to, and this isn't like a gotcha or anything, but earlier you mentioned spending controls, and I just wanted to understand what you meant by that and your thoughts around whatever that is you think they are.
Sure. So, very fair question, Seth. So in Mansfield, at the end of that budget cycle, knowing the shape we were in and that we had to recover some funds, instituted a spending control back then. I think it was as little as $500 or $1,000. If you had to spend money, department head wise, you came through me. And we had to, justify the expenditure. We really did what we could to, keep. We wanted a big free cash.
Okay, so separate from building a budget, this was managing expenditures.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but also, and part of that too is if you can identify new and good revenue sources, obviously, whether it's through a pilot or through additional ideas, a different revenue, you're going to try to make up that and not do spending. Spending controls in general, though, I want to be clear. I'm not an advocate of. I think again, you trust your department heads to run the departments. They're the subject matter experts. You're giving them their budget. You think they're going to do the right thing with it. Again, fiscal conservative, we're all about that. I'm a fiscal conservative, especially with the town, and the taxpayers hard-earned money. But I do think, you ask your department to spend wisely. If there's something, expenditure they think is going to raise an eyebrow, come see me, talk to me about it, and then we can keep you informed. If something you're going to hear about on the street, you have to know this. You should know it here from me first. But that's what I meant by spending controls. But I'm not, I would not I'm not a micromanager as a manager. I wouldn't be asking my department heads to run every expenditure by me. You have a budget appropriated for your department. You know your needs. You know your department needs, and spend as needed to do your job and accomplish our mission. That's what it's about.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
So I'll ask the same question I asked everybody, I guess. What's your thought process on using free cash for the operating budget?
It's definitely, I know it's a hot button issue here. I know it was discussed when I was here back, in my time. So it's always, a question of forecast. And again, we know we don't budget for free cash, right? Free cash is a result of either we didn't fully spend or local receipts came in a lot better than expected, right? That happens, or maybe you get some type of tax revenue you weren't planning on.
In theory, we do not budget for free cash, right?
You can't, no. You're not supposed to budget.
According to the rules.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So same thing, in theory now, best practice, no. It's treated as a one-time revenue source, right? It shouldn't be used for operational needs. In a perfect world, you put it into your stabilization account. You put it into capital projects, capital reserves, for sure. If, stabilization is important. Stabilization has to increase every year with your budget, right? Your budget goes up, you increase your stabilization. So you want to earmark some of those funds for that. That's the prudent thing to do. The reality is a lot of towns have to grab free cash to balance the books, right? Balance your budget. So, I know you want to wean yourself off that. And obviously, as a manager, if that's my directive, that's what I'm going to do. You're not going to use free cash like that. You use it, you're going to earmark it for other reasons. But the reality is towns do it all the time. They have to do it. And if it's really needed, if you have a real lean year and it means it means providing your core services and balancing your budget, it shouldn't be frowned on like you're doing anything, awful. But obviously,
Right,
yeah. But in terms of best practices, no. The hard line is no. You shouldn't be using it in that fashion. But again, it's done. Is that answer that? Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Steph's up next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good.
Yeah, I was going to ask free cash.
I think you had a follow up on something. Sorry, Dennis.
I think all three candidates, we've gone from Seth, and I'm like, free cash. I'm sorry, I beat you to it, Dennis.
You did.
As long
It's
as we got the answer, that's all that matters.
means we're aligned, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm up next, Nick. Okay, so the town has a number of projects in the pipeline, the Taylor School renovation, a potential new community center, and a DPW facility. So please tell us about your direct experience with managing capital improvement projects or other municipal projects and initiatives.
That's great, Stephanie. That's something I really enjoy as a municipal employee, municipal manager. I was heavily involved in the Mansfield projects. We had a huge building program years ago. We added onto all three schools at the same time, renovated the Park Royal School to become a town hall, and did the police station all in one program. It was huge. So I was in weekly meetings on pretty much every project. The granular stuff, the RFIs, the change orders. I was really heavily involved. In Foxborough, I was here for the borough school, a lot of that. I permitted that and started inspecting the construction. Can't say enough good about your building committee. Bill Yukner, they just do a wonderful job over there. It was that's a project to be proud of as a community. I know it came under budget, doubled your square footage, really met the needs of the community. And you want to see more of that. I remember I heard from your summit, you potentially have between 1.3 and 2 million coming back out of that as hopefully to be earmarked for seed money for another project, for your schematics or for your, for initial budget and initial estimates. But I think, going forward, serving the needs of the community for not just now, but for future generations, right? This is our legacy, your legacy to invest in your infrastructure. Project like that excite me. I think Taylor School next, or the community center. I know your DPW is being looked at and obviously needed. You need to upgrade the facility, obviously, at some point. So I think my construction background, both private and public, as a building commissioner, and I've been looking at construction most of my adult life, actually my younger life. So I've been around it all my life. I understand the procurement process. Don't claim to be an expert on anything, procurement, but I have the capacity to get my arms around that stuff pretty quick. I get up to speed pretty quick. And I did a lot of procurement back then and, you get back up to speed with it right away. So I welcome those projects. Obviously, working with you, that's what it's all about, and serving the needs of the community in that fashion. So, yeah, That's something I'd really look forward to.
Yeah, I'm not surprised with your background, I'm not surprised
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that's a passion.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It is.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, sure.
Anybody else have anything?
Dennis, you're up.
Okay, Nick, so you know we're heavily unionized, as most towns in the Commonwealth. So we're interested in your experience in collective bargaining. What has been your role in labor negotiations, and using an example, describe your approach in managing in a unionized environment. Now, I know as acting town manager, you were involved
Yes.
in Mansfield. So what did you learn from that, and what can you bring here in terms of your skill set?
Thank you, Dennis. That's great. Good question for me. I appreciate that. So when I took over as Mansfield interim town manager, we were in it was a shaky time. We had several ongoing labor disputes, open contracts. We have a lot more units in Mansfield than Foxborough, I believe. So I literally had to hit the ground running. I mean, the first day I had, we had all sorts of issues all brewing, and that first year, the first couple of months actually, I was probably at DLR hearings twice. I was JMLC. I had to, I worked closely with a great labor counsel since retired. I learned more from him, and just it was a lot in a short time, and he was fantastic. Being a lawyer definitely helped me. I was able to pick up the books, pick up the statute, pick up the regulations, understand how collective bargaining works. I immediately sat down with the unions. We had some, I had everything from grievances to arbitration. We settled a couple contracts during that time. I sat across the table. Again, collective bargaining, like budgeting, is a year-long process. It's not, you don't wait till to sit down at the table and get ready to bargain. You should kind of know the issues going into it. You review your contracts periodically with department heads. You see what's working, what's not working. I think you get to know your union presidents. You get to know the staff. You want to know the morale, what's going on around town, what people are feeling, what they're saying, right? If you build trust with these groups and they respect you, I think, the financial parameters are probably the easy part. It's already set by you, the AdCom. You say it's 2.5%. We have to live with those parameters, right? So I think the unions are realistic. They're going to say, they can't come in and expect a 10% raise, right? The money's just not there. The hard part in collective bargaining really comes down to management rights, and it comes down to working conditions. So I think if you can get ahead of that stuff and be ready for it, negotiate in good faith. Collective bargaining is important. It's my job is to preserve and protect the town's interests, and I realize that. But you're also dealing with people's livelihoods and their lives. That's how they support their families. This is one of your most valuable assets are your employees, right? And you treat them fairly, you treat them well, and I think if you build that rapport with your people, you're gonna have good experience at the collective bargaining table. You're ready to go into it. And again, if you do that all year long. It's not something you're looking at a week before. You're sitting down with that union. You get to know your union presidents. You get to know the representatives, and to the extent needed, you bring your labor council, obviously. Especially for progressive discipline. I've had to do progressive discipline. That's a really it's a hot burn. It's a lot of process.
Right.
But when you have to do it, you involve labor council and you protect the town's interests first. That's what town manager's here for.
That's a good segue into, in a highly unionized environment, performance improvement, performance evaluation is very challenging because of the lack of incentives. So
Yes.
I'm just curious about your approach to motivating and evaluating employees, how you prefer to interact with employees, and how you handle morale.
That's morale. Yeah. So the evaluation process itself. I think it's a very valuable tool. It should be done at least yearly. I think it gives it the ability for the management to set expectations. It also gives the employee, an opportunity to sit one-on-one with the manager. And I want that feedback too. Just like you'll evaluate your town manager yearly or more often and give me constructive criticism. That's what evaluations are for. It's to give constructive criticism, promote professional development. If an employee needs additional coaching, if a staff member needs more coaching or support, that's a good time to do that. It's also a good time for the staff member to maybe run by with you the goals and objectives for their department, and hopefully they're in line with our bigger picture goals and objectives, right? We want to work collaboratively in that fashion. So I welcome that opportunity. Lastly, with evaluations, it's a good time also to praise an employee. If someone's done an amazing job that year and they're really carrying the ball for us and doing the heavy lifting, it's a good time to give them that praise and say thank you and validate their performance, validate their work ethic. I guess you lead by example in a lot of ways, and that's a way to do it. Was there another part of that question, Dennis? I'm sorry if I don't know if I answered that whole question adequately. I'm sorry.
No, I think you covered the territory. Maybe you could tell us how you handled a difficult personnel issue without using personal identification and what the outcome was, maybe a specific.
Yeah, so I mean, I think in every organization, I mean, you hope everybody's here for the right reasons, right? They're here for municipal work is a way of life. It's not just, it's not just a job, right? It's a way of life. So you're here for the right reason, that you want to serve the public, you want to do a good job. Occasionally, you're going to have, with the staff this large percentages, you have a trouble employee once in a while. And I think you give them the benefit of the doubt, and you do what you can to coach them and bring them along, and you try to, rectify the situation and get them back on course. When that can't happen, you go to the next level, and that's usually progressive discipline. And again, you follow the terms of the contract. If you're a union employee, you do it right. It's process driven, and you make sure you do it right. And unfortunately, if it ends all the way to, some employees, they don't want to work, if they don't want to do the job, if they're going to be destructive or disruptive, that's not good for the town. At the end of the day, the manager has to work for the town and do the right thing by the town. So that's an extreme example. You hope that never comes. Hope it comes, once in a very blue moon. If it does, you have to act as a manager and act appropriately and swiftly. I think it's something you nip in the bud. You can't let things like that linger, and it only gets worse over time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
All set, Dennis?
Yep.
All right. I think I'm next. Ready to talk land use and development?
That's
All
my
right.
that's my favorite area. Please.
I had a feeling, okay. So, as I'm sure you know, Foxborough has several pockets of commercial, obviously Route 1, and then there's also the uptown revitalization that's been in process for quite a while. And another aspect of development I'd point out is sort of the residential growth we have. Now we have Wall Street, have new units there, and then Walnut, right? Walnut Street, where we're having the new development. So with that in mind, I'm just interested in your thoughts. So if you want to describe your experience in land use and community development and how you balance the benefits of development with the impacts that such growth can have upon quality of life within a community. And I guess with quality of life, you might consider just sort of the character of the town and the use of potential strain on resources and that type of thing. So how are your thoughts on that sort of balance?
Sure. So, I really feel I know Foxborough. I know the culture here. I know the values of Foxborough. I've been around Foxborough a long time, and I think maintaining that community, the fabric of this community, is utmost importance. That's first and foremost. Any type of planning or project development, obviously, good industrial, commercial, new housing, good for the tax base, good to serve community needs, but it has to be consistent with what the town wants to see. We need good growth, not just grow for the sake of growing. And growing your industrial commercial tax base is great. It obviously takes pressure off the taxpayers. Tax bills aren't going down anytime soon, we know that. So to the extent we can promote good growth in town, Foxborough sells itself. It's a great location, great place to live, work, send children to school. It's, this is a great place for economic development. Your master plan, again, a few years back, but the growth node approach was great. The Route 1, the Chestnut Green, Forbes Crossing, you've done a wonderful job with the planning department. And by the way, I like the restructure of the organization last year, how you did this with, I know Paige is as a department head and as the division heads under it. I think it's really good to unify like that and be focused. And it's all about planning. And again, these projects here downtown, you've done a good job with housing. The uptown area, the wayfinding, the signs are great, the branding's great, the parking, the traffic flow. It's all been enhanced and it's bearing fruit, right? You get the fire station looks great. You get new business development down there. It's super important for the fabric of this community to maintain that uptown, promote the uptown, and make it a special place. It's also important to preserve it. It's nice to see the big projects, the big growth up on Route 1 with the big stakeholders. It's much lower impact. It's great. It's got its upside. It's got its downside. I realize that, but it doesn't impact your residential in the bucolic setting down here, which is important. I think you want to maintain that at all costs. Is that and land use? And land use is my I obviously have a very strong background in zoning, both as a public official, as an attorney. So I like looking at zoning. I like working with the planning boards. I love working with the zoning board. I had a great experience here with your zoning board, all of them. The chairperson, Bonnie Overwood's is amazing to work with, as they all are. So you have really good community servants here as far as citizen engagement. You have talented board members and committees, and that's super important. And that'll help you promote the great growth,
Thanks, Nick.
Sure.
All right, Nick, shift gears a little bit to more external relationships. As Foxborough's town manager, you would have relationships with many individuals and groups, including employees, citizens, local, county, state officials, as well as colleagues throughout the region. As well as anybody, up in Route 1, you've got anything from the craft group on one side of Route 1 to the new bagel shop that just opened up off of North Street too. So that whole diversity. Tell us how you'd build and maintain professional relationships, and if possible, include specific examples of how you have done this in your current and past roles.
Should talk to him. So relationships are super important. That's the core. That's the core mission of this job, is to be an ambassador for the town and represent the town very well. I span several communities. I did work in Rentham as well, as you see from my resume, so I know town officials there. Obviously, I'm very close with a lot of the town officials in Mansfield, both the town manager, the elected and appointed officials over there. Same with the state delegation. Obviously, I've known Representative Barrows for many years. So I think I could definitely work collaboratively across the board, especially in your regional partnerships. I know you do a lot of stuff regionally here between little things like the AC, not little things, but the regional dispatch, stuff like that. I'd be happy to work across town lines. We all share similar interests, and I know the communities very well. So that's definitely a benefit, and I bring that to this position. As far as community outreach and from the smallest stakeholder, small business uptown, to the largest stakeholder, up on Route 1, the craft group and so on. I've worked here. I've worked with the craft group. I've been up to most of the projects, not most of them, a lot of the projects while I was here are built now, but I worked closely with the craft group on the Revolution soccer facility, on the Brigham Hospital, everything up there. So work real collaboratively with them, and I think, they deserve and want good service, and we give them good service. I know I did as a building commissioner. I know Bill Keegan did as town manager. And we want to promote that good growth and assist them. If it's good for the town, then we should be working with them as that they're our community partners, right? We want to see everybody be successful. So I think, outreach, it's not just open door policy anymore. It's, I have an open door policy, obviously, but it's more about, inclusion and other issues. It's more about getting out there. I don't mind leaving the building and going to where I have to go to meet the people and see the people and do the town's job, do the town's business, wherever it has to take place. So relationships are super important. I pride myself on having long-term relationships. Usually I have long-term friendships and relationships, don't end. I'm still working with Selectmen for 20 years ago. We've been off the boat for 20 years. So yeah, it's important. I like people in general. I like to think I'm a good communicator. I like to think I'm an active listener. If you have something to say to me, I'm going to listen to you. I want to hear it. And I want to hear all sides. So that's how you build, in my mind, that's how you build effective and good relationships with both your community partners, your stakeholders, obviously staff, obviously this board, the employer, So.
Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Just follow up, I think we're doing pretty well at the time. So one of the challenges is a unique position, and because of the external relationships, I think Foxborough is unique, and this position is unique in terms of the scope of responsibility and exposure you have with organizations, like the Patriots, like Gillette Stadium. The other one is the medical complex and what's growing in Foxborough. It's the largest MGH Brigham Medical Center probably in the state, and it continues to grow. Dana-Farber just opened up. So it's those kinds of relationships as well. You have background in the medical industry at all to establish those relationships. It's like everything else. You just really set up a meeting and you get to know people and you build the trust in the relationship. But I always bring that up. People are probably sick of me saying it, but I think it's an important part of the position. And there's a lot of resources there that come from an organization like that. And there's a pilot, paying in lieu of taxes between the town and the Patriots, and
Correct.
should be the same type of thing going on with partners as well. So
Sure.
those are some of the external opportunities I just wanted to get your reaction to.
Yeah, Dennis, those are great opportunities, and that's somewhere, obviously would leverage some of your knowledge to pursue an endeavor like that. And I'd absolutely want to go out in terms of outreach and go meet those people, introduce myself, get to know what their business is, learn from someone like you with your subject matter knowledge, which is obviously much more vast than I am in the medical field. I was there at the original planning of some of those buildings and the construction of that building, so I understand who the tenants were and what the different needs and wants were. But in terms of medical field, no, I do not claim to be an expert, have any knowledge with that. But
Yes,
I would-
I don't either.
yeah, no, it sounds like you do with your background, obviously, but I would embrace your skill set and your suggestions and recommendations in pursuing that. That sounds like a really unique opportunity and something that Foxborough is fortunate to have an opportunity like that. So by all means,
Good.
very interested.
Okay, Nick, so you've elaborated a little bit on this next question, but let me read the question, and you may want to add something to what you've said already. Communication and collaboration between departments as well as with boards and committees are crucial to the success of Foxborough. How would you work to not only ensure but also enhance communication and collaboration? And maybe you were just talking a little bit about external communication, but internal and external communication, school department relations, and elected and appointed boards and committees.
So Stephanie, I think that again goes back to outreach, just being accessible, being available, having conversations, especially on the school side. Obviously, I'd want to meet with the superintendent and Billy Euchner and offer my support. That's what we're here for, to support the education mission. You have a great school system here. Very impressed with the facilities and the way things are run here. I can't imagine making any suggestions. They don't need my suggestions there, but I'd certainly be here to be supportive of them in any role they needed. That goes across the board for all boards and committees. As new members and boards change over, as personnel comes on board, town manager's office should be a resource for them. Whether it's the initial training, the ethics training, the civility training, whatever they need, whatever resource they need, I want them to know they come to me and talk to me and do what I can to promote their success and our success as an organization. It's all about boards and committees and volunteerism. You want to promote that. So it's also going out and seeking, hopefully, community involvement. Obviously, as boards and committees change, sometimes you have vacancy on board, and unfortunately, people with busy lives, you don't have anybody. And it's identifying quality people to come on and help out with these roles. So I think internally with staff, we talked about this, but it's just being present and again, being open-minded and hearing what they have to say. The other piece of that question, could you repeat that again? The question was,
You know what, I think you hit most of it.
but there was one more piece I didn't catch. I'm sorry.
Communication, collaboration.
Seth, you got my water.
Turn this-
Hasn't been open.
No, believe it or not, no, because I think, I know this question kind of, some of the questions, you're already hitting pieces of it as we're
Yeah.
going down. I feel, did anybody else? have
I feel like you hit, it was,
Yeah.
the question was, how would you work to ensure and enhance communication and collaboration? I think you hit it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All set, stuff?
I'm set.
All right. So this next question is related to communication and primarily communication, but this is more external. So it's around, the topic is citizen relations and government transparency. And I've been grouping with transparency, I've been grouping integrity in with that. So transparency in being candid and telling it like it is, and integrity as in when you say something that you follow through. So if you can think of it with that lens. And
Sure.
the question is, Foxborough is committed to customer service, so sort of the integrity following through. Customer service and transparency. Let me start again. Foxborough is committed to customer service and transparency with our government and our services. And so the question is, what would you bring to this commitment?
So customer service is what we do. That's what we're here for. That's our primary objective, is to serve the citizens and stakeholders of this community. As a town official, that was always my primary objective. I made sure it was the primary objective of my staff. I always think I gave great customer service. I prided myself in returning my phone calls every day, no matter how busy it is. You just get back to people, even if you don't have an answer. You get back to them and let them know you don't have the answer, but I'm going to get it for you. And I'll get back to you. It might be a week, it might be 3 days. But again, it's back to communication. You have to engage the citizens and the taxpayers community for full community buy-in, right? We're spending their money, they should know how we're spending it. In terms of transparency, 100%. I mean, the more you can get out there to the public, the better. You want them to know everything you know and then some. And maybe they can, again, give you some constructive feedback, which is a good thing too. People, with high financial IQs out there, we have a talented community. So 100%, I think it's just a matter of getting the word out, doing the outreach, doing the job. And again, the integrity piece, one more time, that was more of through a lens of.
Yeah, so integrity is more along the lines of following through, and when you say you're gonna
Yeah.
deliver something that you actually
You have to. I mean,
follow through
deliverables,
with.
yeah. And again, I wouldn't tolerate anything less than that. I wouldn't want to hear that someone didn't follow through, didn't get back. And I don't think you have you don't have any structural problems here like that. Your staff is, I mean, again, working with people like Chris Gallagher at Public Works, I mean, they're just so responsive. When I was here, just everybody, they do a really good job here. You're really community focused and you're customer service focused. I also bring that private sector experience that I shared with you earlier, but I've been on both sides of the counter. I'm always empathetic to the other side, because when I'm on this side of it, I know what it's like to be on that side. And I've been on that side and I've been treated well and I've been treated poor. And the communities that treat you well, you might not, even myself on this side of the counter, when you have to say no to somebody, it's not always easy to say no, but if you're fair with them, you explain the process and why you had to say no and why this is how it works. Hopefully they might not leave happy they didn't get their answer, but they're going to leave happy with the process. They were treated fairly, they were treated with respect, they were treated with dignity, and they got an answer, they got response. So yeah, I'm very, very customer service oriented.
Thanks, and I did have a follow-up, but you basically answered it, because part of transparency is inevitably you may have tough messages
Sure.
deliver, and it's going to,
Sure.
if you politic it and make it all, try to be all shiny, people can read through that. So it's
No.
delivering a tough message, and your answer makes sense to me, and that how you deliver it and provide the details and the information. So
I can tell you, Seth, years as a building commissioner, you learn how to deliver that message quite a bit. I want to do this, and I'm sorry, I'd love you to let you do it, but you can't because of, and you go through the facts. That's how you do it, so.
got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great. So I have the last scripted question. I think we've hit a little bit on the culture one, my first one. Is everyone comfortable with the culture piece there?
Yeah.
We've kind of hit on that a little bit. And then the next one is, how would you define a successful relationship between the board and the town manager?
Okay. So like I said earlier, I've been in government this long, municipal government this long. I've worked with a lot of select people over the years, select boards as they change. I can't think of one single bad relationship I've had with a select person. I value what you do. I value the time you put in. And if this is a volunteer job, it can be very rewarding in the sense that you're better in your community, and I applaud you for that. And you hope you leave it better than you found it. That's what you're here to do. It's also going to be a thankless job, right? I mean, I'm empathetic to you when you're in the supermarket and the tax bills just came out, or at the ball field and you hear about the tax bill. You've all been there. You know that. So what you have to say is important. It's extremely important. I take it to heart. I work collectively for this board. If I work here, I'm working for the Board of Selectmen. You're working as a body. I understand that. But individually, I'd want to foster a relationship with each and every one of you independently. I'd want to get to know you all personally, meet you personally. You're all going to have preferred methods of communication. You're going to have preferred level of communication, right? You might want everyday report. You might want to see it once a month. It is what it is. So it's getting to know the nuances of that and fostering a good relationship. Keeping perspective all the time. You're the voice of the community. You're listening to the community. You're listening to the constituents out there. And my role is to support you in delivering, the core services and doing a good job for the town of Foxborough and its taxpayers and being good stewards with their money, quite frankly. So, I value this very highly with the select board. I have select board members that become lifelong friends who are no longer on the board. It's just, that's just the way it's been. We're all in the same boat in that regard. So we work collaboratively as a team, whether it's setting visions, values. I truly view this role as, you're not going to want the minutia of a day-to-day minutia of running the town, I'm sure. You're not going to want to know what we did with the, what the light bill was today or with, all these little minutia, but high level, not even high level. I think I'm pretty good at discriminating, discerning what's important and what's not, what you need to know. In terms of communication, I never want you blindsided out in the street. You shouldn't hear anything from a news media or from a constituent. If it's something you need to know, you're going to know about it. If it's something that's pressing, we have an emergency going on or a crisis, obviously go through the chair and ask the chair to advise you properly, and I'd get back to you later on when time permits. But you never, in my watch, you wouldn't be surprised like that. I want you to see what I'm seeing at all times. So communication is super important. That's the nuts and bolts of this job. And most of the town managers in towns that have trouble is usually when there's a fracture, right, between the management and the board. And I would never want to work in that environment, I can tell you that. So I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure we have a good, harmonious working relationship. And I earn your respect and trust. That's what it's about. Yeah.
All right, great.
I
So
mean,
that's.
I had a quick
yeah,
follow-up.
of
That
course.
it's okay if I thought of this tonight and I didn't ask any of the other candidates, but it's something that just came to me. So, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Nick, I'm just thinking about in the situations where I can't imagine would happen very often, but where you disagree with this board and you had different thoughts and you felt very strongly about them. Just thinking about your approach in a situation like that.
Yeah, so hopefully there's very few of those.
I mean, that was a joke. Of course, you're going to disagree with us.
No, of
That
course.
happens all the time.
Yeah.
Bill disagrees with
Yeah.
us. It's part of the job. So
Well, I think it's my role, if we agree, it's to disagree respectfully. I'm always going to put forward what I think is in the best interest of the community, right? What I think is best for the organization and the town of Foxborough. If you feel different, I mean, again, you're the community leaders here. You set the policy. So, I might disagree, agree to disagree, but I'm certainly not going to go, down a road where I think it's going to damage our relationship. I think, we'd talk it through, we'd communicate, be reasonable, and at the end of the day, if it didn't go my way, so be it. I'm not a person that holds grudges. We meet every day for the first time and start all over. So that's how I manage relationships. It's not, I don't take it personal. If you don't think I'm doing a good job or you disagree with what I'm saying, then I want to hear that too. It's important to me to know that that's what you're feeling, that's what you're hearing. So, yeah.
great. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Any other questions from the board?
I just have one other, I think it's tangentially related to everything we've talked about. In your references, a number of people said that you're ready to be a town manager. And one person said they were surprised you didn't apply for the Mansfield town manager position. Any reason for that?
It's kind of a personal reason. That one of the people going forward as a candidate is a close friend and a former neighbor of mine. Okay. And at the time, I don't know exactly if I was here at that time, but I was happy with the role I was in, I'm pretty sure, so I didn't pursue it at that time. Back when I was interim town manager, I was offered, not quite offered, but I was offered to participate in that process. It was pretty clear through the consultant back then, and speaking with staff, the residents, the leadership, the elected officials, they came back to me and said, would you consider taking this position? So I think I probably had a good shot back then. My children were a lot younger back then. I told you it was a rough time for the town at that time. In the first several months, I was out, 4 or 5 nights a week at meetings, just trying to right the ship, if you will. So it was a very intense year, and I just thought at that time it was probably better, for family life and personal reasons not to pursue at that time. I've always been interested in the management piece, and obviously I've always, I'd like to think of myself, even after the town manager came on board when I was interim, I stayed close with him. And the first year, he was from out of state, did a great job, great guy, super intelligent, very knowledgeable. But I learned a lot from him. But I also think I assisted him quite a bit, and almost in a de facto assistant town manager role, if you will. It definitely wasn't formalized like that. But I was always kind of at a high level senior management team, if you will. Even here in Foxborough, working with Bill Keegan and the staff here, the operations meetings, it was higher level stuff. It was good collaborative stuff. It's, real team building here. They did a nice job. I really like the way this town's run. Obviously, I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I think you're doing a great job. I would want to continue more of the same. If there's areas you see improvement, you can hint something, of course, I'd want to hear about it and would look at it collectively. But, I'd follow the plan. If you're looking for a change agent, I'm probably not that person, because I think you do a great job here. I think I'd do more of what you're doing. and do it as well as possible. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Anything else? All right, now it's your turn. Any questions for us?
Questions for you? Wow, I didn't get any scripted questions. I'm sorry. I guess, coming through a door, where the town manager is going to be, like, what's your view? What do you think is the greatest opportunity for Foxborough, or the first initiative you want to see? I mean, someone like me, I think I'm pretty well versed in your facilities and your culture and your town staff. Like, what would be the first initiatives? What would you want to see your town manager working on the first day one, day two? Like, what are our opportunities? What should we be looking at right away?
Anyone want to start off? Or
I could, or
Yeah,
if you want to go, you want to start in the middle and fan out?
Go
or-
ahead. You did a good job starting us off.
So, Nick, a couple of things that I personally am thinking about is information, financial and other, to share with the town. One of the things that we're working on is financial trend monitoring that shows information historically trended over time and forecasted out into the future. And it's a system that would be tailored to the specific information and questions that Foxborough people want to know about. And it may be, cost of wages and compensation as total town cost. It could be the cost of health insurance. It could be the trend, whatever trend. So that's one of the things that is something we're working on. And then another thing that we had talked about was reviewing the town charter. I think there's a different name for the town charter, but in effect, it's a town charter.
Special act.
And right, special act. And it's been something that has been not looked at in quite a while. And I think there's a big opportunity to take a look at that. And there's some things that may change over time
Sure.
that are better suited to the times we're in now. So
Great.
those are just a couple of things on my mind.
Both interesting topics. And I did catch the financial summit. That was really interesting. I know you used the Collins Center and the favorable, and that was really interesting. So I can see why you want to pursue that.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice tool.
Yep.
So hopefully we expand on that. You expand on that's great.
Yeah, and going off what Seth just said, taking on the town charter is going to be a big project.
It always is, but yeah.
Yeah, but it might be exciting to have fresh eyes on it.
Sure.
That we're starting to look at it with the new town manager. Maybe, no offense to Bill, but just fresh eyes that are going to
Sure.
bring us forward. And I think the other thing, I mean, you mentioned tax bills, so I'm always, and I think you remember from AdCom, I'm a little bit on the budget and
Yep.
and us being, I like nice things, I like good services,
Sure.
but I lean towards just being a little bit conservative.
Yep.
And we've learned, and what I've learned, being part of a board or a committee, is that we have a large population of elderly people. People aren't leaving Foxborough, they're staying here. A lot of them want to stay in the same homes that they raised their family in, and it's becoming a struggle. And it's not even just spending on the town side. We're being hit with this it's coming from everywhere now.
Yes.
So it might be interesting just to see with new set of eyes, maybe new thoughts of where we go financially in town too. So that's exciting to me, is, somebody new stepping in. Some things may not change, but it's nice to maybe get a fresh perspective of.
Absolutely, Stephanie. Yep, absolutely. And to the extent you can have people age in place, as a way to get there, I fully support that. Hate to see people not be able to afford the community they've lived in their whole lives. It's a tough thing. So, yeah, that's a really nice initiative.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Going back to the charter and the special act, we talked about what's the timing for that. And we just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do.
Right.
To either kick off with Bill retiring, so we kind of intentionally waited for the new town manager to
Sure.
be in here. So that will be a really exciting project.
Absolutely.
And then, just touching on what you said too, we have a lot of great department heads, and I really want to see some stability to let our department heads fly while, seeing what we can kind of tweak. I don't really want someone to come in right away and rock the boat too much, because we do a lot of things really well. And then I think it's really the relationships, the culture. I've worked with Bill my entire tenure on the board, so even
Sure.
I'm a little anxious about, what will the new relationship be like. So it's really
Sure.
a lot of that relationship building, I'd say, in the first 6 months. Businesses, boards, committees, but there's always room for improvement, have some
Absolutely.
ideas, and looking forward to working with the new town manager to see what's reasonable to execute in the short and long term.
Excellent, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the budgeting process can be tweaked, but I don't think it's broken. I'm cognizant that this is a relatively small organization. The only thing I would say, and I don't want this to sound like an overreach, is we tend to target a number. Let's have the budget come in at no more than 2.5% over last year's budget, which is fine. But that doesn't speak to aligning the strategy or the overall strategic plan and the operating plan and the budget plan, which there should be that alignment. Now, for an organization this small, maybe that isn't like critical, but, there is value to, doing that and walking through that process
Absolutely.
in terms of where you're going,
tie it
the
together.
mission, vision type of thing.
Sure,
Yeah, so.
I see that, Dennis. Yes.
By the time they get to me, everything's already been said,
Maybe we should start with
The next time, maybe.
Starting on your end then next week. I'll look up
We
in
can't
the
change it up now.
what you wish for.
But everybody brought up great points,
Sure.
Nick. And, my thing is, you've been a part of the great leadership that's been in this community, that Bill has built up in this community over the last, his 9 years, certainly my 7 years here. So, and you were one of the hires that, we all thought was a great hire. So my concern, not a concern, my thought is, just letting you know, and you already know, but I've told this to the other two candidates also, we have a great leadership. We have great department heads, and, let them fly.
And I'm 100% on board with that.
Yeah.
I promise that. Yeah. Like I said, you truly do, and I'd embrace that. And again, that's part of the attraction of coming here, would be to work with the caliber of the staff you have here, across the board. I mean that.
All right, great. Any further questions from us?
No, I just thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So,
And just for you to understand timing,
Sure.
I've told everyone else, we're certainly not looking to drag this out. We're looking to, we actually have it on, we had it on our agenda tonight to possibly deliberate, but I don't know how much you know that the other candidate, like I said, had to reschedule.
I just heard actually.
Yeah, certainly understandable reasons.
Sure.
So, we will not be deliberating tonight because we have not finished the interviews as was originally intended.
Sure.
So, we do have it on our agenda for Tuesday.
Okay.
It is our plans to deliberate and make a decision. However, we're not going to hold ourselves to that if we're not
Of course,
ready.
of course.
We're,
Yep.
time is our friend with whatever the board feels comfortable doing, so.
Fair
Did
enough.
I just hear that? Time is our friend.
I wish it was, right?
The only one that knows that I heard that last night, Seth. We went to a training last night. And
Inside joke then.
Yeah, it's
Inside
like,
joke.
it was a fabulous training, so.
Yeah.
So with that, we thank you very much for coming. We thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for your interest, and we'll be back in touch with you.
Thank you, Leah. I
All right,
appreciate that.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice seeing you, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, and with that, we just need a motion to adjourn, but just under discussion, just making sure everyone knows, we are taking a break between the interview and the meeting. So whether you want to go home, whether you want to go dip into a room, let Christina know if you think you need someplace to go review your notes, get your mind together, or just hang out up here as well, so. Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I'm
great.
gonna bring in a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe we should order some.
You wanna get a couple
or
pizzas?
some pizza, yeah, we probably should.
I'll order
Yeah.
a couple of pieces.
Yeah.
And we'll just,
Okay.
does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
I'll get some pieces and bring in some waters.
Yeah.
What can I bring? Salad? Greek salad?
We're probably gonna have enough time to eat one piece of pizza and move on, so let's not go crazy here with the party.
I may bring a few little candies.
Okay, all right.
Say no to that. All
All
right,
right,
sounds
so
good,
motion to
yeah.
adjourn, we just need to take a vote.
Second.
Second, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great,
Great.
thank you.